Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
Hey, all you no, that's Fat Albert. Hey, all you mentees, there we go. This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for an overview of these latest books that have come out from IDW. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. So what we're looking at here are different types of collected editions that have come out recently from IDW. We're looking at some trades and some hardcovers. And the hardcovers all have different types of dimensions. Well, for the most part, we do have some standard size hardcovers. Now, I want to thank the folks at IDW for sending us copies of these books. I wanted to get this video out before the holiday season in case people have been wondering. I didn't even know that some of these books were coming out. So today, we're going to start with Rose Wolves. And as always, I leave the description in the video for the timestamp. So if you want to jump around the video or don't want any kind of spoilers, and you've only seen the movie of 30 Days a Night, you're like, dude, I'm in, no matter what. And you don't need to watch that segment. But don't forget to smash that like button, even if you don't watch that particular part of the video. So yes, let's go ahead and start with Rose Wolves. So first up is this little book, and I mean little in the dimension size. The book is only 80 pages, and this is Rose Wolves. It is a hardcover, and the art is on board. So to kind of give you an idea of the dimensions of the book, this is a standard size trade paperback, and the way the book looks right next to it. So there you go. So what is this about? This is all by Natalie Warner. And it is done in this almost like a kid's book style of storytelling. And there are no words in here. And it's all about this little girl who one day is walking out. And by the way, it is very important to note that this little girl is missing an arm. So she was either born without one or she lost it in some kind of accident. Doesn't matter. What matters is that she is missing an arm. And she's just out one day picking flowers. And one day she picks the most strangest flower and takes it to this cave. And then eventually takes it back home. Now, unbeknownst to her, or you the reader, when she takes it back home, she sets it up by the window. And this flower ends up, I don't know how to describe, hatching or fully blooming into this little wolf. So a rose wolf. And the most cutest thing about the story is that the little rose wolf is also missing a limb. It's missing one of its legs. Kind of reminds me of the relationship of Toothless and the lead character in the, oh my gosh, what the heck is that movie called? The Dragon movie. Age of Dragons. Nope. My brain has just been reading, so I can't even think of the movie's name. There's 3 of them, right? There's a dragon, my pet dragon. What the heck? I know somebody's going to remind me. This is an adorable story, because it's about both of these characters coming together and then going on a journey. And both of them feeling like they don't really belong in their significant world. And both of them finding a place to belong. It's a beautiful story. And definitely one that can be read by anybody, all ages. So if you're looking for like a stuffer for those Christmas stockings, well, you better have a big Christmas stocking because you got to stuff that in there. But anyway, this is a really pretty book, you know, that shows how wonderful graphic novels and the different types of storytellings there are within this particular medium. But yeah, this is a pretty book. This one retails for $14.99, and it has 80 pages. And one of the things you probably notice is the only colors they're really using here are these red tones and then the black and the white. And I believe this is her debut graphic novel. Next up is a set of 3 really interesting books. And I mean interesting not because they're Ninja Turtles or based on these covers, which really do stand out, but this is the best of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collection. So let's look at the first one first. This one here has 408 pages, and this one here retails for $24. $9.99 at 408 pages. Almost feels like a compendium. So, what exactly are these books? Well, they're a mix and match of just different stories throughout the many decades of the Ninja Turtles. For example, this one here has Raphael from the original Micro series, and then you have the IDW Micro series right here of Raphael, and then the IDW Macro series, which was in 2018. But this one focuses on the four turtles. Again, from the original Micro series, which came out after the first issue, and then the Micro series from the IDW era from 2011, and then their Macro series from 2018. So you have Raphael, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Leonardo with these awesome covers here by James Biggie, which they use later on, I think, for this. And you're not getting the black and white version of the Mirage era. You are getting the works, which means it's the color version of these particular stories. Now, if you have the collections of the IDW hardcovers, or you have the works that are the fully colored Mirage era of Ninja Turtles, or you have the Ultimate Collections, they're the black and white, but it's the same story, you already have this stuff. This is more for people that have never picked up a Ninja Turtles book and want a taste of this particular comic series. So let's look at what's collected in Volume 2. So here we have Volume 2. It's another one that's in trade paperback, this time around featuring the supporting cast of the Ninja Turtles, including Casey Jones, April O'Neil, Splinter, and this turtle with a yellow headband. Now, if you're a stickler for continuity and you want to read it all, this one will spoil something about this fifth turtle. So just in case, if you've never read the IDW era, this will contain just a little bit of spoilers, because this is giving you a taste of these supporting cast members. Alright, just making sure I got that out of the way. Did we look at the back? This one retails also for $29.99. This one having 392 pages. So this one is separated by, again, characters. So you have Splinter, Casey Jones, April O'Neil, and Jenica is the character that I'm talking about. Now, April O'Neil and Splinter and Casey Jones all have stories from the 80s and the 90s, and then, of course, their IDW era. Jenica is the only character that doesn't have anything from the 80s or 90s. She was an original creation in the IDW run. So we kick it off with Splinter. I really dig these James Biggie covers. They're cool. Interesting enough, they're choosing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles adventures for his first story to be collected in here, retelling his origin. And that is set in the cartoon universe. So that's really interesting that they decided to use the cartoon universe comics as the first story. And then you have, of course, this particular story right here from the IDW era. So they're not just stories from the original Mirage series, but they're stories from the comics that were based on the cartoon, or the works versions of those original Mirage series, which is the colored versions. And that to me says that they don't really care about continuity in this, because it's all about what is the best introduction to these characters. And I can see that. This is the Strange April O'Neil story right here. I can see why they would do that, because if this is your first taste of the Ninja Turtles and you want to see the very best of what's available out there, then you're going to have to mix and match. Not everything has to be canon, not everything has to be in continuity. And these are the stories here that feature the character of Jenica and how she became the fifth Ninja Turtle. Mainly talking about her origin story, and then showcasing some of her own mini-series. But just like in the first volume, you flip over to the table of contents here. It tells you the page, the publishing date of these particular books, and what the story is that's collected in here. Like, this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Jenica 2, the second miniseries, issue number 1. So let's look at the third, and probably the most interesting collection. So this one here has 368 pages. 2 had 392 pages. This one is $29.99 and features the collection of villains throughout the years of the Ninja Turtles. And of course, you have to start a collection of villains with the Shredder. Interesting that Rat King, because he's such a big player in the IDW era, takes the top billing, though. Surprised not to see Krang in here, but instead we get Rat King and Leatherhead. So really interesting. So we have Shredder. We have, of course, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1. That is a classic story that features the Shredder. And then we have stuff from the IDW era. And different writers, of course. And when the original comics came out, of course, it was Eastman and Laird working on the books together. Now, Eastman in the IDW era does work with usually Tom Waltz and not Peter Laird. Although Peter Laird sometimes comes in and does a couple of issues, special issues. Now, what's cool about this collection is that this has the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 from the Dreamwave era. That has never been collected anywhere. And believe me, I was one of these Dreamwave fanboys. They re-energized the Transformers universe. And yes, I understand the whole... I get it. I'm also not the biggest fan of Pat Lee. But you can't deny the fact that the two brothers with Dreamwave Studios just put Transformers back on the map for a lot of us fanboys, and then started bringing in other characters from our youth, like the Ninja Turtles. So it's really cool to see that collected in here. I mean, there's a reason why people don't touch the Transformers from that era. So this is the origin of not just the Turtles, but Orokosaki. And then you have the IDW era with some hella artwork. You know, you do have a variety of art throughout the years here. And this is the story of the Rat King right here in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles run. But then later on, he looks different. This is the cartoon version of Rat King. And definitely looks a lot different by the time you get to the IDW version of the character. Well, I'll talk a little bit more about him when I talk about the Armageddon game, but he's almost like a god. And there's Baxter Stockman right here, again, the Mirage era, and then the Dreamwave issue right here. So again, collected for the first time. And honestly, the scans of this one look a lot better than the scans of the cartoon-inspired comic. Those scans are a little bit rough. This is the Leatherhead issue right here. And I'll show you by a little bit rough when we look at it. This is another of the Eastman and Laird stories that features Leatherhead. But if you go back and compare, let's do this. So this is the Dreamwave stuff. And what I mean by the scans are clean compared to the scans of, like, let's use the Rat King, for example. Here, the art looks a little bit muddled because during this era, they were trying out different things with the colors. So that's why these scans look cleaner. I'd love to see a whole collection of this stuff. Or even the Image stuff that Eric Larson worked on. But this is Volume 3. And that is the best of the TMNT collection. What am I doing? There we go. Killlock, the Artisan Wraith. This was the one that came out earlier this year. And I'm going to go ahead and say this. This is a follow-up to the Killlock. So if you've not read the Killlock, you can read this, but believe me, it will mean so much more if you go back and kill the Killlock. Read the Killlock. The Killlock was an amazing ride, and this is a great follow-up to this particular miniseries. So, just, I guess, minor spoilers. Not going into heavy spoilers, because both can be read on their own. But I feel like, having read the original Killlock series, you would enjoy this a lot more. So, Livio Ramondelli returns to the world of Killlock along with Sean Lee. And Livio is doing everything. He's doing the colors. Of course, there's these beautiful painted colors. He's doing the writing, the dialogue, everything. And he goes back to this world and introduces us to two new characters. You have the Resolve and Lurk, who are two assassins. And they're out there to hunt down the galaxy's most dangerous being. And that's what they are set out to do. So to kind of give you an idea of why you should read the Killlock, let me just give you the pitch without going into spoilers. The pitch of Killlock, the original miniseries, it was about these 4 robot beings that were incarcerated. And they're struggling to survive in this particular alien world that they've been exiled to. And it's called the Killlock because if one of them dies, this Killlock is activated on all of them and they all end up dying. So it's a really cool premise, one that we've seen before, but a really cool premise that features these robotic characters. And of course, Livio Ramondelli is no stranger to drawing robotic characters because for 10 years he'd been working on the Transformers title at IDW. And his art there's just something dirty and painted style, metallic that I just love when I see it on paper. It is just beautiful and creepy and amazing at the same time. So what this does is in the aftermath of the kill lock, we're introduced to a new being, a new type of character, the Artisan Wraith, who isn't your stereotypical type of character. And that's what the two main characters of Resolve and Lurk are doing. So not only does this really work as a follow-up to that series, and it's hard to talk about this because I can't talk about the ending of that series and what happened to the four characters, or even if you're going to see the four characters in here. So not only does this work as a follow-up to that series, but it also kind of works like a prequel to that series because it builds on this world that we were introduced to in the very first book. And I feel like this is the stuff that Livio wanted to do in the first story, but there was just already so much that he wanted to just go ahead and maybe if he came back to the world of Killlock, he would put it into a second story, and that's exactly what he did. It is a very intriguing space adventure about survival and bonding between, robots. Even though they're robots, they're still the most human type of characters that you're going to see out there. So if you're a fan of like sci-fi and new sci-fi, because we always complain that all we see is old sci-fi rehash, whether it's Star Wars or Transformers. Does anybody really complain about Transformers, though? This is a new world that you don't need to read anything before this or after this, but you will want to. And you'll definitely want to read the original Kill Lock. It is a wonderful, worthy sequel. And I really, really hope with the introduction of new characters and the plot that just keeps you engaged until the end, that we get a follow-up to this particular series. This particular book retails for $24.99, and it has 208 pages. And if you go all the way to the back, that's where you're going to find the pinups and the sketches of the characters. There's the Lurk and the Resolve, making sure that there's no spoilers here. And yeah, this is where you're going to find the pinups, and then the psychological profiles on the Resolve and Lurk by Dr. Andrea Letamendi, which I guess is just a surname for Livio Ramondelli, maybe. But that is the Kill Lock, the Artisan Wraith. Star Trek Year 5, Deluxe Edition, Book 1, hardcover. It's a lot of words, but it is Book 1 of the final year of Star Trek. And this one is really interesting, at least to me. To kind of give you an idea, though, this is the size of a standard size hardcover, meaning the trim size of the paper is that of a trade paperback. So this isn't a deluxe edition. And it's interesting to me because I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan. Like, I've yet to see all of the original Star Trek, all of the Next Generation. I think my favorite Star Trek is one that everybody else ends up hating, or most people that I tell, I'm like, oh yeah, I like Star Trek. Because I like the movies, the original movies, and even the J.J. Abrams movies were okay. But I liked Voyager. I was in a really weird point in my life, but I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Yeah, I didn't dig Deep Space Nine or Next Generation or Enterprise or any of the new shows that are out. I haven't even seen Picard. So it's one of these things that, okay, I'm aware of it. I'm aware of these characters, and I've seen a lot of I would say probably half of the original series, all 3 seasons, and I saw some of the cartoon, and I've seen all the movies. I love the movies. The Wells, man. Voyage Home, best one. I said what I said. I think most people probably go with Wrath of Khan, and they're probably right. But what this is what would happen if Star Trek had just kept going and had a full 5 years. So you have a lot of amazing talent that comes in here, like Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly are, I guess, what would be considered the showrunners. You have Jim McCann, and you also have Jody Hauser writing some of the stories. And then you have different artists like Stephen Thompson and Martin Coccolo and Silvia Calafino. And you also have, Angel Hernandez right here. So this is the first half of their 5-year mission, or the final year of their 5-year mission, because when the crew of the USS Enterprise left Earth 4 years ago, they were setting out for 5 years. So this is the finale. And here's your introduction by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly. the hive mind, as they like to call themselves. And I love that they keep working together. They really, to me, have reminded me a lot of the stuff that Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning did in the past. Now, I don't know if these dudes are from the UK or not, but everything that I've read by them has been awesome. I really enjoy their stuff. So they're the showrunners of this particular series. So this is collecting the first 14 issues, and I think there's a total of 28, so there will probably be a second volume of this, because this does say volume 1. This one here retails for $39.99, and it has 320 pages. So in here, you're going to see year 5, and it starts off with this weird little intro right here, where there's somebody holding a gun to the back of Kirk's head, like the back of Captain Kirk. And what ends up happening through this particular series is that, thank goodness I did watch that particular episode. This serves as a follow-up to an episode that had happened in the original series. So we are reintroduced to these alien beings, the Tholians. They do come back in here, and they end up leaving a child with the crew of the Enterprise. And the child's life is all in the hands of the crew. So it's really cool to see what it's like for characters to just act like themselves, but also have that modern twist to them. Not saying that like the dialogue was bad in the 60s or anything, but it does have a little bit of a modern twist, especially when you're talking about sci-fi that takes place in the future. I mean, I'm sure I don't have to tell anybody that has ever watched Star Trek just how progressive and how advanced that series was compared to other series that were happening at the time. I mean, we could say the very same thing about the Twilight Zone. And to bring these characters back, but also not have a budget, or I'm sorry, to have an unlimited budget, it just gives you this amazing respect for these type of stories they could have done back in the 60s. There's a wonderful issue here with a spacewalk. I feel like Sulu's character gets a little bit more of an expansion that includes this fish lady. But it's also good to see like Uhura take a step and be the center of a particular story. So if you're a fan, that's what I meant. Zulu, I'm so used to Kirk, or at least from the episodes that I've seen, get his groove on with alien ladies. Yeah, this is all about Zulu getting his with a particular fish lady. And I came honest, I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan. I'm not the guy that's like, oh, Kirk would never act like that. But I can see this being more like the 60s show, and a little bit like the cartoon. And I think maybe the cartoon might have taken place after this particular series. More so than the J.J. Abrams reimagining of the series, which was almost like a reboot, right? Even though it included Spock and oh my gosh. I will say the art varies, but I really enjoy it, how close the art is to portraying a lot of these actors. Because, I mean, we're not talking about fictional characters. Yes, they're playing fictional characters. But we are talking about real people that were actors during this time. And oh my gosh, I just realized how many of these actors we have lost over the years. But the paper stock in this one is this glossy paper, and it does continue into the next story arc that will be, I guess, featured in volume 2. And the covers are all the way in the back, or the variant covers, rather. And it does have this glossy paper stock. It's not the thickest, but it does lay over pretty well. It doesn't try to shut on you. And that's probably due to the fact that the paper stock isn't the heaviest. You do get some Klingons in here, but let's look at the binding. So this one has sewn binding. And again, it is a standard size hardcover. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Armageddon game. Now, before I even crack this open, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that if you are reading the IDW hardcovers, they haven't gotten quite there yet. As a matter of fact, the stories that are collected in here take place around issue 130 and so of Ninja Turtles. So if you're currently reading it in hardcover format, they're not there yet. So this might have some spoilers. Minor spoilers, but spoilers. Now, if you just started your journey on reading Ninja Turtles, in the IDW hardcover format, then this will definitely have hardcovers because we're talking about like the tail end of big storylines. Even though this happened, I think it happened early this year, late last year, uh, and then you're at the beginning. I don't want to spoil anything for you, so please skip to the next book. But if you don't care about spoilers or you're caught up and you're like, yeah, well, I want to hear you show me. I'm going to talk about the pitch without going too deep in the spoilers. This is another hardcover that is printed on art on board here. And here's your end sheets. And the main creator, why people were excited about this book, is that Tom Waltz returns to the world of Ninja Turtles. Vincenzo Federici is the artist on the book, with Alex Sanchez doing some of the inks, Matt Hearns doing the colors with Heather Breckel, and then Sean Lee doing the lettering. Because during this time, it's Sophie Campbell that is writing these particular stories of the ongoing series. This is the big event. This collects all 8 issues of this series. There are other things that happen, though, that you probably need to be aware of in the world of Ninja Turtles that set this up. So I'm reading them in hardcover format. I had no idea the Armageddon game, until I cracked it open, was actually in canon and part of continuity. And mainly because of the title, I thought it was like based on the video game. And then when I started reading, I'm like, oh, what the hell's going on? So a couple of things have happened in the pages of Ninja Turtles. During this time, as I said, minor spoilers, not going heavy, but during this time, Splinter is dead. The Turtles are without a master. The Turtles are without guidance. And Orokosaki has returned, the Shredder. But he's come back, and in previous issues, not ones I've read, has made an alliance with the Turtles. He has decided to help them out and kind of take the role of Splinter. So there were other series that have happened, other one-shots, and all that's collected in here is the Armageddon game. There are no Ninja Turtles ongoing series that are collected in here, nor any of the one-shots. And some one-shots lead into this particular event. So are you going to be lost if you don't read the Alliance, or there was another mini-series that led into this, the opening games or something like that? Not really, because they do a pretty good job of keeping you, or catching you up to speed. Like, I read where Leatherhead had eaten Krang, but Krang started absorbing Leatherhead and now has become Leather Krang. So these are your key players right here. And this is a quick introduction to them. You have the Pantheon, who are those gods that live in between time and space. Rat King being one of the Pantheon. You have the Return of Shredder, the 5 Turtles, and then you have Null, Leather Krang, like I said, and Baxter Stockman. So what this is the character of the Rat King has approached his siblings again to start the game. So there's always a game that's going on with these gods, and of course, the pawns are us. And what he wants to do is do this Armageddon game, and he gets these 3 characters, the alliance of Baxter Stockman, movie, TV show, cartoon, comics, brain, almost gone, almost over, end of the year, whew. Madame Null, and Leather Krang. And those are your key players. They're going to join forces to take down the Turtles once and for all. We're also introduced, because I haven't seen these guys appear in the main series, to these 4 clone Turtles, and they are calling themselves Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo, but there's something off with them. This part really made me crack up. There's something off with them because they're not using their right weapons. Like, for example, Leonardo's using a sai. So the cop is like, wait a second, something's going on. They're trying to kidnap the mayor, which right now is Baxter Stockman. So the Turtles are aware of this big alliance. So what they do is they split up into different teams. And you have some of them go into Dimension X to go and get the help of the neutrinos. There's a couple of little MacGuffin weapons here that the Turtles are after. And then some of them are trying to find Hob. And they're trying to get his allegiance because they know this oncoming doom is coming. And they're going to need the help of everybody. And Hob has been one of those characters that has been on again, off again. And a friend to the Turtle, not really a friend, a ally, and then an enemy. So that's what this is, and we are reintroduced to the gods here. And of course, the Rat King is the one that is playing everybody. What's interesting about this, and I could tell, is that this is a crossover with the Turtles. So sometimes you have to read issues where like Jenica ended up going, or where Leonardo and Shredder are, and when Leonardo has to fight off against Dark Leonardo. I feel like that was what was missing from here, and I'm pretty sure eventually what's going to happen is this is going to be collected as another one of those volumes, like volume 17 probably, of the ongoing IDW era, and it will be mapped properly with those issues that were missing from here. Because, like I said, you have the Alliance one shots, you also have, what was it, the opening games, opening moves, something like that, that kickstarted this, and then you have the ongoing issues of Ninja Turtles that are missing from here. So let's actually take a look at the back where you get the variant covers. And by the way, this was a lot of fun. Just how many characters that have shown up throughout the years. And yes, some of them are reimagining of classic characters, but others are original characters to the IDW universe. This is the one that got my seal of approval. I fell in love with this, and I cannot wait for this to be in a big oversized format along with the other stories that are part of this. And then this is what the end sheets look like here. Now, as far as the binding, it is sewn binding, 240 pages, printed in this thick, glossy paper. And this is thicker than the Star Trek one. And the retail price on this one is $29.99. Next up is 30 Days a Night, Deluxe Edition Book 1. This is another hardcover. And label is a Deluxe Edition, but this is another one that is a trim size of a trade paperback or a standard size hardcover. Now, if you've watched the movies, and like I mentioned earlier, if you watch the movies and you're like, oh, I want to read the book, absolutely skip to the next book because I don't want to spoil this for you. So I'm going to give you the pitch because the pitch is really cool of 30 Days of Night. Now, if you've never seen the movie, you've only seen like the covers at the comic book store, and you've been intrigued by 30 Days of Night. Well, let me give you the pitch. Okay, so black end sheets, hardcover, art on board, artwork here by Ben Templesmith, and all written by Steve Niles. And Robbie Robbins is the letterer throughout the entire issue. Now, 2004, the annual that's collected in here does have other artists that joined Ben Templesmith. Your introduction here by Steve Niles, talking about 20 years since him and Ben Templesmith have pitch this story. And it's a really good introduction, talking about how it was the only time he's ever called a director and they greenlit a story, and that was Sam Raimi, talking about how he pitched 30 Days a Night to him, and Raimi was like, yeah, let's do it. And he said, like, never has that happen again. It's that interesting of a story. So what this is, it all takes place in, this is very important, Barrow, Alaska. And it all starts on November 7th, 2001. And what happens in Barrow, Alaska is that it's in the northernmost point of North America, in this town where there are 30 days of night, just because they're so up north and they have 30 days of just pure night. Now, if you're a vampire, that is the best place to go and hang out, especially if nighttime is what, it's where you do most of your hunting. And that's exactly what happens here. Now, if you've read Tales from the Crypt or Vault of Horror or The Haunt of Fear, there is a story like that in there, like where the twist is like, oh, but we're in Alaska and it's gonna be night for the next 30 days, and it's such an awesome twist. So, I mean, the pitch is great. I really enjoy it. I thought that was a really cool pitch. And during this time, it was also important to note that we were getting the pretty vampires. The sparkly vampires were starting to be a thing. And even before we had Twilight. I mean, we had Anne Rice, too. There were some sexy vampires. This goes back to the horrifying vampires. So in this particular town, we meet Stella and Eben, who are two police officers, one of them being the sheriff of this town, the husband, Eben. And they find this guy that's causing up a ruckus at a bar. They put him in jail, and sure enough, something is really off with this guy. And it turns out that he is a vampire, and he's bringing other vampires into this little town of Alaska. And this beautiful, eerie artwork by Ben Templesmith just adds to how creepy the story can be. These aren't pretty vampires. There's a lot of just monsters that appear through here. And it's good. It was good to see that, and it does have that type of. You know what it reminds me of? I just thought of this. It reminds me of stories, scary stories to tell in the dark. That trilogy. Oh my gosh! When I was a kid, that stuff was just nightmare fuel, and that's the same kind of artwork that I see through here. So there are three stories collected in here. You have 30 Days a Night. You have Dark Days. You have Return to Borrow, and then the fourth story is really part of the third story, the annual. So the first story is about the couple and the town trying to survive against these vampires. And then you have this 48-page annual here from 2004 that, like I said, serves like a little bit of a prelude to the third story arc in here. The second story arc is called Dark Days. And Dark Days is a follow up. Let's get to actually Dark Days. Dark Days is a follow up to the original series that shows the remaining members, or the people that survived the original story. And it's basically about Stella having written this book. It's actually called 30 Days a Night, and letting other people in the world be aware that there are vampires. But even her publicist doesn't believe that it's real. Even I think at one of her lectures, a vampire comes after her, and they still don't believe her. So it kind of draws the attention of the vampire population that they've been outed, and they're going after her. And there's this really weird part of the story towards the end where something happens that it's not just supernatural or horror, it kind of becomes almost just sci-fi. And then we have Return to Borrow. And Return to Borrow is probably my favorite story in here. It's a follow-up to the original series, and this time around, we're focused on a character named Brian Kikta, who is the brother of one of the characters in that 2004 annual. And he happens to be the new sheriff in town because by now Eben and Stella have moved. Let's just say that. And he ends up teaming up with one of these guys from the annual who's like a survivalist. And it's just, this is my kind of story, is when they just cut loose and go after the vampires. Now, there was more after this particular series. Here, let's look at the extras in the back. Because there was follow-up series, enough for a second book. I'm not sure if there's enough for a third book. So here's the extras in the back with the files. 30 Days a Night, talking more about each of the vampires and the powers and limitations. And then your end sheets right here. This is another one that's a hardcover with glossy paper stock. However, this one, even though it's got sewn binding, it does have this, I don't know what it is, this glue. It keeps cracking on me and almost feels like the actual page bunches are coming off, but hasn't, I mean, it's okay so far. There hasn't been an issue with it. And I don't know if that's a complaint people have had. I don't know if there are other people that have done overviews if something's going on with the page bunches, but I did notice that on mine. And it could just be my copy. But it also looks, see what I mean by the cracking? It just, even though I stretch this book out, and it doesn't have that many pages. I mean, we're looking at a book that has, 464 pages for this one. But that right there kind of reminds me of what was going on with my Bitter Root hardcover. So it is a flat spine. And this book retails for $34.99, 464 pages. Last but certainly not least, The Art of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. If you haven't seen that movie, man, this is so good. It's so good. It's so wholesome, good. I really enjoyed it. And I'm not the biggest fan of Seth Rogen. I've talked about that on my channel. Look at those end sheets. But there was just something pure and a throwback to the classic Turtles. The kids that did the voices were awesome. Different, of course, presentation of the characters, but that's with everything, right? Whether it's the cartoon or the 2003 cartoon, the 2013 TMNT CG, or the movies, or the comics. But the spirit of it all is there. Here's your forward by Ramsey Nato, who is the animation president at Nickelodeon and Paramount. And you have a Jeff Rowe introduction here, who's the director of the movie. And then you get a little bit of a history in case you've never heard of Ninja Turtles and your first taste of Ninja Turtles was Mutant Mayhem. And then you have the character breakdowns and telling you a little bit about the character, the production designer, and the art director. And I love the fact that they keep the babies, because Raph has to be like, I want a toy of the baby Raph. Like my kids are like, oh, they wanted the toys of Donnie. I think Donnie was my favorite character in the movie, but baby Raph happens to be my favorite baby. Just look how weird and creepy. The art style is so good. It feels like I know the Amazing Amanda and I reviewed the movie. It has like a almost like a dirty CG, or not CG, I'm sorry, that Spider-Verse type of style, but just feels like it's got this dirty filter over it to represent the city. Yes, that's the one that I want. That's so cute, man. And then last but not least, let's look at Mikey, and then we'll look at what else is collected in here. Not looking at it. I love the odd shape. Like, they're not perfect. So in here, you're going to have character designs. You're going to have... And if you haven't seen the movie, I don't think I need to say that there might be spoilers here. You're going to have backgrounds. You're going to have settings. You're going to have villains in here. You're going to have weapon breakdowns. And then I love the fact that they tell you just a little bit behind the scenes of how they decided to go about designing a particular set or creating a character, and what made this Splinter look a little bit different than the Splinters that have happened, in the past. Because it's got to be hard to reimagine characters whenever you've got, oh my gosh, 40 plus years of history. There's a little bit of storyboards, and of course some of the villains that show up through here. And the villains crack me up with some of how ridiculous some of these villains end up looking. Yes, definitely go and see the movie if you haven't seen it. It's a lot of fun. I believe it's streaming on Paramount, but you know what? Screw that. Go and support physical media, baby, because that's where it's at. They can pull that movie at any time. So this particular book retails for $39.99. It is a landscape book. Love the end sheets. And it has 176 pages. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of these books. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of these, if you've been looking forward to some of these books, or if you've never heard about them and this is your first time ever hearing about these type of collections. Smash that like button on the way out, and everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.